Well, Jimmy LaRose here and Louis Fawcett. Louis, you and I have spent the last decade finally doing a moral inventory for ourselves in the nonprofit sector. And we have proven and discovered empirically what's not working, the mess that we find ourselves in. And, you know, you as president of the National Association of Nonprofit Organizations and Executives, NANOE, as well as the author of the new book, Reimagining Nonprofits, Turning Your Mess into a Masterpiece. Louis, when this book is released, our headquarters, our national member associations are going to push back. They will not have it. There will be blowback. And you and I find ourselves 10 years later having forayed into this mess, if you will, and just a little bit overwhelmed by the vitriolic, improper response from different groups. And I just love to hear you talk about that and what you think people's response is going to be, negative or positive, to reimagining nonprofits.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jimmy. Thanks for spending time with me. Yeah, it's fascinating when we think about nonprofit authorities north of Richmond, who think that they can tell people across the country what to think, what to do, how to believe, and how to address the problems they face every day in their communities. And the problem is that they continue to push norms in the nonprofit sector that are decades old, 40, 50, 60 years old, that don't work anymore. The world has shifted, demographics have shifted, and people are not stupid. And when you continue to give them things that don't work and then punish them when the very things you're giving them continue not to work, or punish them if they push back and say, no, there's a better way, there's a different way. It's unbelievable to me, first of all, the piety in the nonprofit sector that needs to be dispelled, that somehow nonprofits are different than businesses. They aren't. If you can't run a business, then you can't run a nonprofit. And so often what we do is we put people in leadership roles because they have a good heart or because they're hardworking. And those are good things, but it doesn't mean they know how to run a business. And if we're really going to make a difference in our communities, if we're really going to stop fentanyl poisoning and veteran suicide and homelessness, and if we're really going to make a dent in literacy and make sure kids can graduate high school and help the more than 150 million orphans across the world, if we're going to do that, we're going to need a lot of money to do it.
Uh-oh.
And in order to get that money, we're going to have to change our way of thinking about our donors and begin to treat them like customers. Businesses invest in their customers because they know that's where their revenue is generated. Nonprofits need to invest in their donors, sit down with them, listen to them, help serve their needs to change their communities. Jimmy, you and I talk to philanthropists every day, and these are not arrogant, rich, wealthy elites who want to change their communities. These are everyday people who have been successful, and now they want to give back. And they're passionate, and they've got some of the solutions. But what they're confronted with over and over again is this mess in the nonprofit sector where they invest money, promises are made and not kept. Money is invested, and they don't see the return on that investment. And the return on investment in the nonprofit sector is changed and saved lives. And the more money we have, the more lives we can change and save if we're willing to put aside the piety and begin to run nonprofits like businesses.
Louis, just a second ago, you made a cultural reference. I think we're going to call this particular teaching or this talk that we're having, we're probably going to call it nonprofits north of Richmond, but I think you got that from that song, Richmond, north of Richmond. And how do you see that applying to the nonprofit sector?
Well, here's what's fascinating, Jimmy. I'm from a small town called Farmville, Virginia. I grew up in rural Virginia, 7,000 people. And I grew up with the values of hard work, patriotism, working together to solve problems and get things done. And I learned early on that no one else gets to tell you what to think and what to believe. You get to determine that for yourself. And I'm fascinated now that Oliver Anthony has come out with Rich Men North of Richmond. And he's from Farmville, Virginia, my town. Now, I don't know him. I never met him. I didn't grow up with him. But he's also from Farmville. So the timing of this is uncanny. He said, I've been selling my soul, working all day. And it's a shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. I wish I could wake up and it not be true, but it is. And Jimmy, I wish I could wake up and this mess of the nonprofit sector not be true. I wish that I didn't have to talk every day to nonprofit leaders who are suffering under the yoke of the establishment, who are suffering under being told that they have to continue to follow things that don't work. Oliver Anthony continues, these rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. They want to know what you think, want to know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. And unfortunately, in the nonprofit establishment, that's what we're facing. Is there these headquartered ivory tower elites, whether they are in Alexandria or DC or New York, and they think they know better than we do. They think they're more educated, they're more evolved, and that they can tell us what to do. Now, this is not about North versus South. I know I have a Southern accent. I'm not talking about geography. I'm talking about attitude. And I work with incredible people in New York and New Jersey and in Boston, in Seattle, in California, who are certainly not from the South, but they have a heart for changing and saving lives. And they're tired of these ivory tower people. Maybe they went to an Ivy League school, and so they think that they're smarter than everyone. Maybe they went to Harvard or Yale or Cornell or somewhere like that, or maybe they grew up in a cushy private school setting, and it's just been ingrained in them to look down on those other people, and to think, well, we know how it should be done. You just need to listen to us. And that's not the way the world works. The people who know the solutions are the people who are living day in and day out in small communities, in urban centers, because they talk to their neighbors, they talk to other community leaders, they have the solutions, but they're being held back by the establishment of the nonprofit sector.
Louis, as NANOE has developed with your help and as its president, we know that the call on our lives is to ensure the same free market enterprise principles we know work in the for-profit sector are given as gifts to the nonprofit sector. And for some reason, because we've taken that position, we find the national networks, the establishment, actually coming out and saying things that take our breath away. It's as though if we say the sky is blue, they will then send out an email to everybody saying the sky is green. It is not blue. And I was trying to figure out how people could just with avarice, consumption, and greed, why would they put themselves in that position? And, you talked to me, you called me last week because I couldn't figure it out. And then you began to talk to me about the bubble that they're in and what their goals are within that bubble. Can I get you to speak to that?
Yeah, it's natural when you get a job working for an established headquarters that you want to move up the ladder. I don't blame people for wanting to advance their careers. I don't blame people for wanting to make more money. In fact, I think all nonprofit executives and workers and leaders should be paid much more than they're being paid now. So I get it. It's a natural tendency to want to climb the corporate ladder. And so, but the problem is they think they can climb the ladder by towing the party line, and the party line doesn't work anymore.
Sure.
And so they want to tell us how we should do things. It's like, they want us to go back to driving a Model T. It's like they're angry at Tesla. And we saw that in the automotive industry, right? I mean, Elon Musk came out with a new business model, and the traditional automotive dealers rebelled. They didn't like his new business model. They told him he couldn't do it that way.
Right.
And so this is nothing new, Jimmy. Throughout the history of humanity, people find themselves in a position of power, and they lord it over other people. And when they begin to feel that power slipping away, then they assert control. Then they begin to bully. Then they begin to make you toe the party line because they're worried that their power is going to slip away, that somehow their job title is not going to mean as much as it used to, or if they're in a headquarters and their revenues start going down because people decide, you know what, we're not paying this anymore, you're not helping us, then fear sets in. So I get it. I don't blame them, Jimmy. But what bothers me is that they lose their focus on changing and saving lives. I think these are good people who got into the nonprofit sector for the right reason. But once they spend enough time in that ivory tower, then they lose touch with what's going on each and every day in communities. And they've lost touch with the true mission of the nonprofit sector to change and save lives.
Lewis, I'm going to close with this. When I released Reimagining Philanthropy, the controversy that ensued, the most read articles at Chronicle of Philanthropy about this crazy book, Reimagining Philanthropy. Lewis, I don't think the sector's seen nothing yet. Wait till Giving Tuesday, when Reimagining Nonprofits, Turning Your Mess into a Masterpiece is released. Tell us what it's going to be about. Break down the book for us, and then we'll end our Sunday morning chat.
So the first 5 chapters are about the mess, and it's horrifying that I even have to call a nonprofit a mess. A nonprofit should be they are in many ways the best parts of civil society, but it's still a mess because I hear from executive directors and CEOs every day about the dysfunction they're facing within their organization and within their national organizations. And so I do describe that mess in the first 5 chapters. And it's about a lack of leadership, a lack of understanding how to run a business, and a lack of focus on what our mission is truly about. But then, if you can make it through the first 5 chapters,
which, by the way, is scathing. The first 5 chapters are scathing.
But I have to, I've got to hold up the mirror, Jimmy. We have to begin to have honest conversations and stop fooling ourselves that somehow it's different in the nonprofit sector. It's no different. We grow businesses so that we can grow impact. So then, in the next 10 chapters, I present 10 solutions, which are all real-world solutions that can be implemented in any nonprofit, in any community, small or large, north, south, east, and west. It's about good people wanting to help make a difference in their communities. And these are solutions that will help nonprofit leaders achieve impact.
Lewis, I think with reimagining nonprofits, both sections are going to be a lot of fun. Describing the mess, but your solutions, so we proved it empirically. Every single solution that you lay out in the rest of that book, we have seen it build financial capacity. But those 10 solutions are going to take their breath away too.
There's certainly some of they're not conventional. Treating your donors like customers. Putting a price tag on your mission. Paying your employees without apology. Treating your donors like customers and asking for the order. Rather than just saying, well, give what's on your heart or do what makes sense to you. That doesn't happen in any other sector of our society. You never walk onto, a car lot and have the salesman come out and says, you like that car? Why don't you just give what's on your heart? No, it has a price tag because it has value, and changing and saving lives has value. And your mission in your nonprofit has a price tag, and we're not going to apologize for that. So we've got to dispel the piety. We've got to change the way we think about how boards should function. We've got to focus on encouraging CEOs to be the leaders, to have the vision, and implement the solutions. And if they're going to do that, they've got to have money to make that happen.
Well, Lewis Fawcett, the fact that you took on the mantle of being the president of NANOE, a lot of the incoming has gone your way, but your board of directors, our board of directors, has supported our 3,000 members in all of this. And we look forward to sharing the message that you've been entrusted with as many people as possible these next 6 months. So thanks for spending a Sunday morning with me, pal.
Thanks so much, Jimmy. It's always good to see you. And we look forward to interacting with everyone around how to reimagine their nonprofit.
Okay, friends. Thanks for a good day.